Welcome to the Business Journal's second quarterly roundtable for 2018. My name is Steve Kiggins. I'm editor of the Journal. With me is Jason Schaff, our publisher. But really, thank you for being here. I know we all are busy. We've all got a lot of work to do, and really do appreciate your time being here. I want to start with just a simple set of introductions so we all know who's in the room. Just a little bit about yourself, about your company, and then share with us the single best piece of advice that you've received in your career. No pressure. John?
Ladies first.
That was perfect.
Absolutely. You see how he's a gentleman. He just deferred right there.
Thank you. My name is Heather Harbo. I'm a partner at Condé, Thomas & Harbo CPAs. I've been there for 18 years. I pretty much came right out of UCLA. Got my CPA experience working under Gary Condé, who's our founding partner, and kind of worked my way up from there. And the single best piece of advice, which I was not ready for that question.
I'm a reporter. I have to throw random questions out there just to keep things fun. Somebody's been a great mentor to you in your career, I'm sure.
Yes, well, Gary Condé has been my mentor pretty much throughout my entire career. And I don't know if it's a single piece of advice, but basically client services. Keep our clients happy, do their hand-holding, handle the work that they don't want to deal with so that they can focus on their businesses. You know, take the weight of the financial reporting, the taxes and everything off of their shoulders. So that's actually what I enjoy doing the most, client work.
I'm Gary Sanger, Sanger Associates. We do retained executive recruiting. I've had the pleasure of living here in Santa Clarita since '87, so about the time that the city became a city. I also had the pleasure of being on the Boys and Girls Club board for 25 years. Currently serve on the College of the Canyons Foundation board. The Sanger Associates day job is we do retained executive search. So we're that proverbial headhunter exclusively on a retained basis for companies. And best piece of advice, I can think of several because I've been very fortunate. I was one of those that didn't think my parents were very smart until I was about 25. And so I think about what many of my parents' friends and now business later. But I think in any meeting, make a difference. Just make a difference, make an observation, leap out there, and if you have an opinion, the elephant in the room, if you have an opinion about what might make that enterprise better or that organization better, speak up and have an opinion about that.
Next. My name is Lindahl Lucas. I own an insurance agency here in Santa Clarita since 1989. Been out here for a little while. My father moved out here in 1983. When I graduated from college, I went to Cal Lutheran University. I came out here, worked for a few different insurance companies, but decided to open up my own about 1989. Hoping that it would work out well. And I figured if it didn't, I could always go back to doing whatever it was I was doing before. And thank God, a lot of good work and a lot of good people around me. Been here and doing very, very well for a very long time. I have offices in Palmdale, here in Santa Clarita, Century City, and Woodland Hills. I've got a great staff of people that I work with. It's phenomenal. I think once I started really looking for quality over, maybe looking at a number or a dollar figure for employees, it made a real big difference. The people that you surround yourself really makes a big difference, which is awesome. But I am constantly evolving as a person, as an employer, and I think that one of the things that I was going to say, was a great piece of information that you had said before, was evolving, changing with the times. I think we've all had to change since the internet pretty much popped up around the late 1990s, early 2000s, and ever since then, our world has been kind of shaken up, and I'm constantly trying to figure out direction and new different ways to make that happen. But I think that would be one thing there. So I always like a quote that I remember that is, knowledge is learning from your mistakes. Wisdom is learning from the mistakes of others. So that's about it.
Hi there. My name is Tamara Gurney. I'm the founding CEO of Mission Valley Bank, which is a small business bank. We cater only to small businesses and have a location here in Santa Clarita. We've had two. We consolidated into one, and we're looking, as to your point, with technologies changing the landscape of so many industries. You know, your phone has become your branch, and so
Yes.
you don't need 4,000 square feet that you're paying a lot of money for and not using. So we're looking for an opportunity out here that's more what I refer to as the bank of the future, but I better hurry up because the future is here already. So, but I've been in banking my entire career kind of by accident. I found myself to be a single mom many years ago with a high school education, so I looked in the newspaper for entry-level jobs, and they were all in banking. So I started out there in clerical work and jumped ship a few years later to a community bank located in San Fernando Valley, which I stayed with for 20 years. And I thought I was going to retire from there. Unfortunately, the major shareholder decided to sell the bank, and as I was the chief operating officer by that time. So that was my college education, although I did get my degree during that time as well. And found myself needing a job, and the best way to do it was create one. So I said, I've got to be able to start a bank. And thank goodness that I didn't know what I was talking about, or I never would have tried.
Exactly.
So it was, I kid that it was probably the second glass of wine that said, we got this. But, so looking back, I'm glad I didn't know, because I probably wouldn't have tried. So it's been quite a journey. Bank's $338 million in assets now, and doing extremely well. And we're happy to be members of both the San Fernando Valley community as well as out here in Santa Clarita. I have probably more than half of my staff lives out here, so it's nice to have. We actually have two locations because we have our entire back office is located out here.
Was there a piece of advice that you had early on that helped you get where you are?
Yeah, don't believe the people that tell you you can't do it. So, because there are lots of, I mean, we started because my bank was sold in 1999, and I stayed there through the transition to make sure people got jobs, as many as they could. And so then when I was turning around looking for what I was going to do next, it just seemed like, you know, this was the obvious choice. And, you know, a lot of people said, you're out of your mind, how can you do that? And I said, well, you don't know what you don't know, but you got to keep trying. So.
All right, John, it's all you now.
All right. Did run out of film, I guess. Hi, I'm John Shaffrey.
That was your plan.
One of the founding partners of a law firm here in town called Poole & Shaffrey. Started in 1998 with my partner David Poole in Los Angeles. We are now 20 years old, 22 attorneys. The majority of them are here in Santa Clarita. And we like to think of ourselves as the law firm for your business. And our primary areas of practice is business transactions of all kinds. What's a legal document, we'll handle it. Any disputes over documents, business litigation. We have a very significant employment counseling practice. At least over 300 companies rely on us to keep them up to speed with the enormous ongoing changes of employment regulations and so forth, and then employment litigation. And then I'd say another significant area for us is business succession and estate planning. And we have 9 partners, the majority of whom are also here in Santa Clarita. And it's been a very, very wonderful place to have a business. When we moved it from Los Angeles here to Santa Clarita about 15 years ago, we didn't realize how good of a decision we actually made. It was initially financially driven because of the business taxes in the city of Los Angeles, parking. You have to pay well over excess of $350 a month per employee. But Santa Clarita is such an incredibly business-friendly environment, and what we didn't appreciate was just how significant the professional workforce is in Santa Clarita Valley, and we were able to get top-notch professionals who no longer wanted to drive to Century City or downtown Los Angeles, so they can come and work here in the community. So our workforce and our employees is just incredible. I've been in the community for over 25 years. My focus, at least from a nonprofit standpoint, has always been economic driven, focusing on people getting a started business or helping them maintain a business. Very active with the Chamber of Commerce over the years. I was the chairman of the board a while back. Helped start the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation. I was one of the founding board members and still an active board member along with Tamara. We're sponsors of the Business Incubator and really supportive of many of the tech startups that are going on in the community. As far as the best piece of advice I got came from my father, who was involved in customer service training in his career. And he shared that there's 2 rules you have to remember. The first one is the customer is always right. And the second rule is if you believe the customer is ever wrong, reread rule number 1.
You've all touched on a few things that I wanted to talk about anyways, and customer service was one of them, and both of you specifically brought it up. We're busier and busier, all of us. How do you maintain a superior level of customer service and service to your fellow employees as you're busier and as there's more demands on your time?
Communication, the key. I mean, if you're not in contact, I mean, some of my clients, if they might not be happy. They might not be happy, whatever it is. But the point of it is, if we're at least communicating with them, it's good. We can help resolve it. Because that's I think just sets it up for success. Because if you blow off your client, they're just gonna get upset, get angry. You're not gonna, how can you fix it if you're not in contact with them? So communication faster, I think.
Do you have any particular rules in your business, actually written rules about keeping the customer happy? Customer communication is like, don't let a day go by without answering an email or anything like that that's any type of structured.
I don't have a rule, but when I talk to my employees and whoever they are, it's whoever the employee is, I just say, look, deal with it as soon as you can, because it can only get worse, and it usually does. And people don't like it. If everything's going great, you'll never hear from them. But it's usually when there's an issue that you'll hear from them. So you have to deal with it quickly. And really, insurance is black and white, because the attorneys made that way. But when there is something that's gray, you just say that's when there's a problem. That's the only time there's a problem, and it's usually
Right.
derivative of the client. So, but we'll just say, hey, I can't think of a specific incident, but it's really about just communication. I like to say that I'm a good communicator, but it's as soon as you can nip it in the bud. I think it's better customer service that way. My thought.
I want to tag on to that. This happened over the weekend. So the world of communication, we have a very large executive search that we're doing, and our longtime standing client's a middle market company. It's global. It has tons of manufacturing both in Mexico and China and the US. And this particular position was going to back up with the number 2 person in this corporation. The gentleman that we presented and have been interviewing and have been going through the process for this last 2 months was the second person we put into the process. He ended up with 3 other offers. And he eliminated number 1, he eliminated number 2, and it's us and another firm. And this other firm, they were interviewing him. That parent was in Philadelphia rather, and they changed the job to from a smaller state, smaller city in the southeast to Houston, to a bigger job. And so he was taking one last long interview with these people. Our client gave him an extra week to figure it out. And over the week, he was there getting on a plane on Friday, and I said, Jerry, let's chat before you go. And I said, how do we get to yes? Because we've had a lot of dating going on. We've had a lot of discussions going on, and we had an offer that was out there. And he very specifically talked about a couple points of the offer that in fact, if they were to be met, he would say yes today. And in my discussion then with my client, who's the number 2 person in this middle market billion-plus corporation, said, let me get out of my meeting here in a couple hours. We put the deal that evening. The signed contract was done on Saturday. So communication being available on their terms, not when my office hours happen to be, worked out really well. So it just supports your communication idea in spades.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because, I mean, you know, today, communication, you know, with all of our cell phones and everything, texting, you know, I always tell people is if it's meaningful, don't text it, because you can't tell tone, pitch, inflection, meaning, or anything else like that, you know, unless you actually pick up the phone or you're face to face. You know, I think that's an important part.
The same can be said for email too, though, and
Oh,
so
true.
many of us use email. Has email improved communication or worsened communication?
Both.
Yeah,
I agree with
absolutely,
that.
but-
I agree with that.
I mean, once you hit send, it's a living document. I mean, what I tell people is breathe.
Yeah.
You know, when I worked in my very first law office was 1987. There was 100 lawyers. It was in Beverly Hills. They had one fax machine.
Really?
And yet, there was an expectation then that you get a response in 3 days. Then fax machines grew, and then you were expected to respond in 1 day. And then, of course, the advent of email, and the expectation grew to, I want a response immediately. In the law, we can't quite do that. So I tell them breathe, think, make sure you have the right answer before you hit that send button. Because that's what they're paying us for. And if you can't, and if you need some time, just communicate, let them know. Just say, great question, got a couple of ideas for you. Just want to research a couple of things, I'll be back to you Tuesday morning. Then stick to it.
As long as you just very soon say, hey, I'm working on it. I
You're
think
on my
most
radar.
people are fine with that, right?
Oh, for sure, yes. Once they know you're on their radar
Yeah.
screen, they're fine.
Well, communication at our firm, I don't know if it's old school still or not, but we do like to pick up the phone and talk to our clients in person. You know, we want to make sure that they're still getting that individualized attention, you know, that they're paying for from us. So even if it's saying, hey, you know, your estimated taxes are due, you know, next week, make sure you make them, you know, we got to keep them on track. We still like to do, you know, that sort of, you know, it's not face to face, but at least we're communicating with them in person. I mean, some little reminders, of course, we can do by email. Barely use the fax machine anymore, except for the IRS. The IRS doesn't email; they just use fax now. But
It's more secure.
but I do find that our clients, you know, the ones that we do the hand holding for, they do appreciate those phone calls. And we still do a lot of face to face. A lot of you know, especially the aging clients, they still like to do it that way. They want to sit and talk to you, and we will still cater to those. A lot of the millennials, you know, they'll even text me their tax documents, and I'll be having to download it from my phone
Yes.
to my computer
Yeah.
just to get it in the file. But and that's fine too. As long as it's acceptable from the governments, we'll go with it. Well, you know, it's really a transitional stage where we have to cater to all the different types of clients and their individualized needs. So we don't have one specific way, but we do, at our firm, we do have company meetings. We discuss each other's workloads. If somebody is getting a little bogged down, you know, with their work, then, you know, we might pass it on and say, hey, reach out to this person. So our clients do realize they're getting a team, and when they hear from somebody else, I think that gives them another level of comfort.
But do millennials get annoyed if you actually call them on the telephone, talk to them?
A lot of them don't answer their phones.
I'm about to say they could listen to the voicemail message, right?
Yeah,
And then they text you.
voicemails. I don't think they like voicemails at all. But that's when you kind of have to go to the emails and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then of course you have to get into the cloud, you know, computing and make sure that everything's secure.
Right.
And that's a whole nother subject I'm sure we're going to touch on.
Well, and you mentioned millennials, and obviously we're seeing a lot of millennials in our workforce now, and that is going to be the largest piece of our workforce is the millennial generation. How have you seen that change workplace culture, whether it's in your office or in folks that you know? What has the millennial generation meant to workplaces?
Well, one of the things that struck me recently, we were talking about it a little bit before the interview, was one of the best companies in the world is right here in Santa Clarita, Scorpion, who does website design, development, and digital advertising. And they have the better part of 500 employees just across the highway from us here in Santa Clarita. When I walked in, I couldn't help but notice this room behind the reception area when you first walked in, and there was all these boxes. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, these guys don't make a product. What the heck are they shipping out? And so I asked the receptionist, I said, what are you shipping out? She goes, nothing. I go, well, what are these boxes? There's hundreds of them. She goes, oh, all our employees use our address to have everything shipped here. Because they're not at home, they're working. And then, of course, I looked to my right, and there's a basketball court. So it's a little bit different, and then every work area where they're assigned by group and so on and so forth, they have their own preferred games, whether it's darts or something along those lines. So there's the idea, I imagine that they'd like to blow up steam, but get incorporated into the work as well. Not only are they in the workforce, but you have to remember they're your customers. Millennials are making decisions, they're in charge of procurement. And how they're going to also find you, learn about you, and validate you is different, which the internet is something we would never have considered significantly 3 to 5 years ago as far as a source of new business. Now we embrace it fully, and we're doing a fair amount of it being contacted for the first time through the internet, through our website.
What else?
Tamara, how about in the banking business?
It's, millennials, the younger generation, what's the next one coming behind them?
Gen Z.
Gen Z. So, I mean, graduating students from colleges are not, banking it is not sexy. So, it's gotten a bad name in the downturn, and we've kind of climbed back out of that. At least community banks seem to be held in a little higher esteem. But they aren't out there looking for jobs in banking, so we have to figure out how to sell it to them. And we've had limited experience with most of our positions that we've had open require some skill, and I would love to be able to and plan to start training the next generation of lenders all the way up to a chief credit officer. But to do the job today, I need that person. So they tend to be towards the end of their careers. They're older. They're in my age generation, and so that's a challenge for us. We see them, some millennials come in, low entry-level positions, tellers, and it's run the gamut. I mean, from the ones that everybody jokes about, they walk in a half an hour late and wonder why you're upset, and why they're being written up in a counseling because it's just 20 minutes or so. What's the big deal? And but then there are others that are extremely conscientious, and I've got a young man who started as a new accounts person, and he's got an engineering degree. He's now in our IT, helping us transform our archaic processes that we've been using forever and a day, and people, older folks tend to hold on, and change is happening so fast now that it's scary for them. So, but this is helpful because it's doing it in a good, positive way and bringing them into it. So I've had both sides of it, but it's something that we talk about, and we're definitely going to have to figure out, because they are our customers, and there will be, most of them are going to larger banks because they have more technology than the community banks. We're more personal touch. We like the face-to-face. We go out and visit our clients. Our calling people are required 4 times a year to be out touching every one of their clients 4 times a year, plus the new business. So social media, we're so highly regulated that some of this stuff is a challenge for us too, to get out on Twitter and and try to market yourself where they'll see you, and yet we are struggling with examinations that are telling us all the things we can't do, and we have to figure out what can we do without a massive amount of staff that's managing that. So it's interesting, I think.
Where and how do you recruit younger people?
We've been all over the board. I mean, we've been at college campuses trying to get on, their career boards, and a lot of knocking on doors, networking, talking to people we know. We use recruiting firms that specialize in banking. We've been on Indeed and go out, we're trying
Right.
and analyzing what's working. And so far, the social media seems to be where we are finding them. And so, that's probably where we're going to be directing our efforts. But we're in the analyzing phase right now of figuring all that out.
I want to go back, just if I could, for a second on the communication. I mean, how do you communicate with your clients? I don't think one size fits most of them.
No.
And so asking them, in the example I gave before, text me, I'm in a meeting, and then I'll step out and we can talk. Emails preferred, or in person early in the day. Let's get a drink after work. But that in-person thing, I don't think there's ever any substitute for it, especially as you're developing a client relationship. But phone, in person, some people want to be wined and dined. Some of that, I think I ask when we're starting a new client, how should we best communicate with you? Because we're going to do that once a week, dial in conference calls, making sure our projects move forward. And some people don't like that a lot. They don't want to be put under that pressure, because then they'll put it back on us to say, how long did this whole project take?
It's a really good point. And for you, when you're doing a search, you're on a timeline that's a crunch time. People want to fill positions quickly, and I know in my industry, I think it goes beyond the banking and financials, but it's hard to find good people. And they're in high demand, and then the prices are, supply and demand. Prices are going up, you're having to pay more. It's tough. There's a lot of mergers that have just been announced, and yet I can't find quality people that I know already are going to be displaced, but the displaced ones are being displaced for a reason. They're keeping the good ones. So you try to get your head in the tent and get an introduction to a quality person, and they've got 4 offers, and they're all better than yours. So it's a real interesting world right now to navigate. But how we try to differentiate ourselves is to be relationship minded. So that means you have to take the time. If you're going on a prospect call, you better know that business inside and out. Do your research. And then you go, and they know most business owners are very happy to talk about their business. That's what they love. That's their passion. So let them go, because you're going to learn. And ask questions to find out those things that you need to know, like to your point, how do they want to be communicated with? Maybe they hate text and email. Maybe they want a phone call. So you got to know those things up front. So we just try to build that rapport, and so that we're the one that they know cares about them. And that makes a big difference to people, to know you called because you remember that their kid graduated on Saturday, and hope everybody had a good time, or last time your wife was in the bank, she had the flu, or you're getting over it. And those are the things, and it's cultural. It starts at the top, and it's enforced by behaviors, and we only invite people into the family that have those traits.
You hope their kid actually graduated.
Yes, that's why we were.
And is everybody having similar experiences to that, with really fighting to get the right candidate for your job? You mentioned it, Lindahl, in your intro as well, that paying a little extra. Is that something that we're seeing across the board?
Well, yeah, actually, with me, I'm still looking for I need another commercial person in my office, and then I was going to promote somebody from my personal lines, and then bring them up to commercial, and then the person was all excited and happy. We found somebody to replace her in personal lines, and we brought them in, and then it's like, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to be so fast, and just trying to get that. I was paying for all the education, all the licensing, and everything. The employee that I was bringing up had panicked a little bit, was thinking, I don't know 100% what she was thinking. She just didn't even show up. I had this girl working for me for like 3-4 years. She was amazing. Loved her to death, and then I'm just like, I'm giving her a raise, paying for all her stuff, and I don't understand that. So it's commercial insurance. One of the things I discussed with my office manager before I came over here was, we were talking about the aging workforce. Now, personal lines insurance is a different beast, which is like home and auto. And you call online, Progressive, Geico, everybody's got an app or e-insurance or whatever it is. So it's become more of a commodity. And when I said earlier about the evolution of my career, my business itself, personal home and auto is where I started, but it's become more of a commodity. You can get online, punch in your numbers, and use your credit card, and you got insurance. They're taking away the agent. But business insurance, we do a lot of business insurance. A lot of business insurance through California and all over the U.S. And but that's a much more of a professional feel. I mean, you can't just say, yeah, check a box and I'm going to buy it. It really takes a knowledgeable, educated person who, many years of experience to sit down and really look at somebody's business and their insurances and make sure they're covered properly. And it's funny, everybody wants as much as they can get and they don't want to pay anything. And I'm trying to make that happen, and it's a little difficult, but when you have somebody really knowledgeable to explain, what their exposure is or what could happen, then the value of a knowledgeable agent comes into play. And then somebody who's that good, I hired a new office manager about 2 years ago, 40 years experience. She's amazing. Her wealth of knowledge is amazing. She says, she's forgotten more in the last 30 years than I'll ever learn in my life, and I love it. I think it's really sweet and cute. But insurance is not sexy. Let's just put it that way. So people aren't saying, "Hey, I want to become an insurance agent." You know what I mean? So the people that are out there, it's kind of limited. So we're trying to find good quality people, and and the people that I need might be living in LA, but they don't want to come to Santa Clarita. And if I can get somebody good from Santa Clarita, then that would be good. Generally, there's a few different things that we do. So.
Yeah, and John, you mentioned it. Moving out here when you did, and you had the workforce. So there were the people here to help you grow the business. Santa Clarita's grown tremendously. I mean, unbelievably in the last 20 years plus, probably. Is there still the workforce to support that growth in this community, or is that part of the struggle?
I think that they're here. I mean, not only do you have 175,000 or so in the city, you have at least another 50 to 75 in the surrounding county areas. If anything, you have people that are on the freeway every day that would love not to make that commute.
Right.
And
That's
stay
make it
here.
easier for us to find
Yes.
new candidates.
Yeah. In the city.
The commute is a killer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just getting worse, and plus with that construction ongoing on the 5. But the city and the county have really gotten together on this. We have a wonderful county supervisor, a great city manager, great city council, and the fact that they're so supportive of the Economic Development Corporation. Not only are they working on retaining jobs, but helping to find companies and help them relocate here. We've had some significant results. But as far as hiring right now, it's a buyer's market. So we're looking for a lawyer. It seems like we're always looking for another lawyer. We're in a growth mode, and there's not that many of them out there because they're working right now, and the economy is going well, and lawyers are in demand. So it's a little bit trickier to get the right lawyer to get them and join us. What we have found, what Lindahl was talking about, people not wanting to come into Santa Clarita, we have had a couple of people who were single who would work up here but living in other areas and just wasn't their cup of tea. Whereas those who are starting out a family or a younger family, they come up here and they think it's just the best thing ever, given the wonderful environment, schools, and so on and so forth. So when you get the right person, they're keepers. Most of our employees have been with us for 10 plus years, and it's in part due to the environment as well.
And our firm's had some pretty good success with hiring interns, students that are still in college. So when they're there, they're getting a good taste of what, the accounting and tax world is really like. And then, if they work out in the end and we really like them and it seems to be a good fit, then we will offer them a position to stay at our firm. So we've been able to get some really aspiring students that they're brilliant, people. And of course, we have to train them from the bottom up, but some of those turn out to be some pretty good long-term employees. We've had one or two now. So the internships have, they're great for, at least for the accounting industry. I don't know if any of the other industries that works for, but it's quite fun because you get to meet a lot of them too, and you get to see what that generation is like. I mean, we may have to branch out and offer types of positions where they can work from home because their work-life balance is quite different than what we grew up with. But I think, most of our industries would be able to offer some of that. A balance, of course, a
Mhm.
balance. We still need that client contact, so,
Yes.
yeah.
So we're about the halfway point of the year now. What's maybe your biggest success story so far this year, and what's something that you're working through with a change or a challenge or something that might be happening? We'll just go around the table. Linda, I'll start with you. Just kind of that taking the temperature, if you will.
No worries. For me, like I said, the change for me, I've picked up just about probably all of the licenses that I could. I've constantly been evolving, like I said. Started with the personal lines, do a lot of commercial lines, and now I've set up, I've restructured my office in a way to where I have departments. I have a personal lines department, commercial lines department, and now I started an investment advisory firm, wealth management, and I'm going to be teaching investments at UCLA. It's kind of cool, but it's another step up. I always said, like, when I was selling auto, it was like I was in high school. Commercial insurance was like, graduated from college. Now I'm getting my doctorate. So I'm going to be focusing on that. But I always remembered, and maybe going back to something that I learned a while ago, never forget what put you or got you to where you were at. So never forget the home and auto side, never forget the commercial side. But have them, for me, I'm going to have them working and self-sufficient and doing well and making money. But my focus now, I'm going off on the investment side and the retirement side, trying to focus on that for myself and just, to learn, grow, do that whole thing. So can you take me back to the beginning of the question again? Because I think it went off on
It was just the biggest success story of the year, and then the change or the transition that you might be making as a company. So
that's, yeah.
I think you hit it.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make
Good
sure.
job.
Thank you.
High five. Yeah.
You're next.
Thank you.
Yes, go with the camera. Let's get the camera ready.
No, that's not. For us, this is a transitional year. We opened the bank in 2001, in July, and went right into 9/11, and it was tough for a couple of years after
wow.
that. But looking back and seeing, we navigated all that, and but I also didn't realize, as you just pointed out, that the year's just about half over. I do realize it, but it's just hard to take, because I don't know where 17 years has gone. That's how long the bank has been open for business, a little longer than that. And it made me realize that I didn't stop aging when all this time's gone by. And so I get examiners come in, and one of the major topics in all banks, because they tend to be, most of the people are older and close to retirement, and so they want to know what your succession plan is. And I've thought about it, but I've never thought I would be at an age where I'd have to consider retiring, so, that stuff creeps up on you. So we're looking at, okay, I look around, who's going to be sitting in this chair in 15 years or 17 years from now, because it won't be me. And that's a conversation I've had with my team this past year was, look, if there's not somebody inside that has an interest, we're going to have to look at where's the future, who's going to take over the reins when I'm not here, when you're not here, you're not here. So it's been this transformational year for us in terms of building a bench, looking at human capital, who we're going to bring in and build up into key positions. And then the technology piece is how do we then automate everything that we can and keep expenses down, because we're, high touch supported by high tech is the only way to stay in business in this day and age for a small community bank. So we've had some good success. We've actually elevated a couple of younger men in the bank up to a middle management level position that I believe one of them will step into a senior role within a year. I've hired a young a deputy chief credit officer who we're grooming, and we hired a mentor and a coach for her. groom her, and she'll be the future of credit. You know, I'm having to consider who's coming after me, and I haven't solved that one yet. But that, I would say the biggest successes are the acknowledgement and acceptance of that major change, and then the implementation. We've had some good successes. We got the entire team rallied around the efficiency campaign, and they got little transformers and put them all over the tables, and we played games. But they've come up with ways to automate things and question things, like, why do we do this? And people look at it and say, well, I don't know, because we've always done it. Yeah, but has something changed where it's not even relevant anymore? Who looks at this report? And I'm just pushing back at all of them, and they're starting to have fun with it. Some, you know, I've said, some are going to be intimidated, and they'll probably leave, and that's just going to happen. But, you know, if somebody is spending 4 or 5 hours creating a report and sending it up to admin, and it's going in the deep shredder, that's 5 hours of time, that's productive time lost, and nobody's questioning because we get so used to how we do things. So it's kind of fun, and it's been very successful. We've managed to acquire some good talented people, and we've got a diagram and a path to what this transformational bank will look like, because there's so many mergers and acquisitions going on right now that really, to stay relevant for a little bank like us, you either grow asset size through acquiring other banks, expanding your geography. There's only so much we can penetrate in this particular market. And so I really look to ancillary products that complement what we do in our core business. So core banking is bring in deposits and lend it out to people that need to borrow money. But we've gotten into merchant acquiring, which I don't think there are any small banks in the country that do. Most of them are, there are about 10 in the whole country. Most of them are larger. We're making some really good strides for income, fee income in that line of business. I want to, you know, keep the bank running, but it can only produce so much. So these other core opportunities, I believe they will be core to us, that complement the banking client, are going to be the way that we can generate fee income in the future and stay in charge of our own destiny. So that's my major focus, and I'm really pleased with the progress we've made, and I can see the finish line. So hope I still get there.
I don't know where the years go. I just became the father of a teenage girl last month,
Oh.
and I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know how those things happen.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't know. I don't
Not
know.
on your credit cards.
Yeah. John.
I would say there's two significant things that have occurred so far this year that affects the law firm Poole and Shafferty. The first has to do with a change in law, and the second has to do with something we read about in the headlines nearly every day. The change in the law had to do with a state law, the California Fair Pay Act, which historically said that if you have a male and a female employee and they are doing the identical job, you need to pay them the same amount of money. But yet, when surveys and statistics on this issue were published, it's clear that that's just not occurring, that women are being paid less than men. So the legislator changed the standard from identical responsibilities to substantially similar responsibilities. Well, what does that mean? There is no guidance. So we're seeing a significant uptick in litigation against businesses because they have a gap between women and men in substantially similar job responsibilities. So we're spending a lot of time counseling our clients to take a look at this real seriously, find out what you're paying and see if you do need to make adjustments. B, make sure you have written job description responsibilities for every employee so that you can either support or deny what your position is going to be and your pay for each employee. And C, make sure you get meaningful reviews, because merit in job performance is a legitimate basis to have discriminatory pay, meaning one gender can be paid more than most. Folks, when they do job performance evaluations, it's like if they're going to the guillotine, they don't want to do them. And when they do them, they, on a scale of 1 to 10, everybody's 9 and 10. Well, if that's the case, then fantastic. But if it's not the reality, and you're trying to use that information to justify one pay versus the other, you're going to be in a bad situation. So the first change would have been the California Fair Pay Act. And that's going to have to play out to see the courts will handle and decide down the road what does substantially similar mean. But we're clearly seeing an uptick in litigation. The second is what we're reading about in headlines nearly every day, and that's the Me Too movement. And the reality of it is that companies aren't necessarily prepared to how best to handle a claim of harassment or sexual harassment for that matter. Particularly smaller companies, they don't have built-in HR people or human resources people, and they don't necessarily do any training. I mean, federal law says if you have 50 or more employees, your managers or supervisors need to go through a certain type of training every 2 years. We recommend that all companies have some type of training for sexual harassment and harassment training, and have some type of protocol in place so that they can have a zero tolerance and immediately investigate and have a protocol in place to investigate the situation and make a determination about the behavior that's being alleged as inappropriate. So those are the two big changes that we're seeing, Stephen, this year.
Okay.
Well, to go back to your question about the accomplishments of the firm, we recently went through a transition where Jeff and I became partners. And Gary's starting, to pass down. Thank you. Gary's starting to pass down the torch to us, and that's kind of a neat thing for us. It's exciting and scary all at the same time, but we're handling it. We're making it work, and then also some of the accomplishments is we're picking up other niches, in the accounting and industry and taxes. There's so many niches to choose from. So, me personally, I'm taking on foreign financial reporting, central withholding agreements for non-resident aliens, and come to find out that there's actually people out there that need that, and it's not necessarily mainstream. So, and then plus, we're also willing to work with our clients that come to us and say, hey, we have this. And so we'll tell them, hey, you know what, we haven't done it before, we're going to research it, we'll be your experts, and we're bringing on little niches like that. And that's quite an accomplishment for us. I agree, I think so. And, well, can I stop there?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll let you.
Sure. What's 2018 brought for you so far, Gary?
Ours is a relationship business. If I simplify it, we get business via relationships. Companies make a very big bet on us in terms of their management, senior management, and executive openings. And then we have to deliver it really, really well. And I think in that relationship business, just this last week, again, another text out of the blue from a guy that I hadn't talked to for a couple of years. He now is a pretty senior executive within an aerospace middle market firm. He texted me and said, look, can we talk tomorrow at 11? This is like 10 o'clock at night. Can we talk tomorrow at 11? I've got 2 searches that I'd like you to help me with, each VP level within a major division of this aerospace company. And I talked to him, and his name is Glenn, and I said, how nice, how'd this happen? He said, frankly, I talked to another gentleman who had lost his job just in the last few weeks. You talked with him, you had enough time to spend with him to kind of give ideas and suggestions. We represent the company, so it was very unlikely I'm going to have a job. But I keep reminding myself, here it was 8+ years ago with him. Glenn was in transition. Now he has opportunities for 2 big jobs in his division, and next day we had a signed contract. We went there in person and talked about it. So the relationship part of it just never ceases to amaze me. Your comment before about interns, I think that's just the most awesome way for young people to get noticed, out of the crowd in terms of being a college graduate and no internship. So as we have clients that we serve, we have people that we place, and they have family members, they have neighbors, and we're very happy to provide some counsel, some suggestion. That age-old, what's a good resume look like? We'll talk to 100 people, and you get 110 different opinions on it.
Exactly.
And how can that help? So, relationship. That's where we work it and really work it well. And in transition, I've got two people on my team now that are starting to take responsibility for the BD part, the relationship part, rather than my doing it alone. So I feel very optimistic about that.
And last thing, we're going to end with an opportunity for all of you just to squash that common misperception about your industry, about what you do, because we all get pigeonholed no matter what we do. So give everybody a chance, squash it, let everybody know, what is that misperception, what do you hear, and tell them why they're not right.
Well, as a CPA, we of course have that misperception that we're just pencil pushers. That we fill out forms, we're after the fact reporting, we're doing tax returns and compliance and whatnot. And in reality, that's the tip of the iceberg for us. We're doing management advisory services, we're doing planning, we're looking into the future, we're helping our clients, establish their business, forming entities, kind of individualizing what they're doing, what state they're in, and the best way that they're going to be able to move forward. Of course, we need bankers and attorneys and everybody else to refer them to do the other part of it. But we give them direction, and they like that. And just the advice that we give them is invaluable. We do retirement planning, estate planning, and financial planning, and a lot of consulting. It's a lot of consulting that our firm, we're more of a boutique, accounting firm. We do like to do a lot of business consulting and service our clients in that way. So we're not just pencil pushers. I personally don't mind, making sure that everybody's in compliance. That's kind of my forte. But at the same time, you can't stay behind the desk. You have to get out there and help them succeed. And their success is a reflection of, our success is a reflection of their success, which I'm sure is quite the same with everybody else in the room here. So.
John, you've never heard anything bad about an attorney, so
Well,
you can answer that.
Got a few jokes.
Everybody has their jokes. And some lawyers even publish their jokes on their own little section of their website. But, being a lawyer is at the bottom. It comes down to one thing. It's standing up to do the right thing. That is the bottom line. And historically, if you think about it, the majority of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were all lawyers, and those men, was all men at the time, were hunted down by the British, and many of them ruined, and some of them killed, including their family members, because they did the right thing. Our focus at Poole & Sheffrey is to make sure businesses do the right thing. We want businesses to succeed, and in order for them to succeed, we want to lower their risk, to make sure that they're getting good advice on how they do their business. When someone starts a business, they're just thinking about their dreams, they're thinking about the service or the product that they're going to make, they're not thinking about the back end. They're not thinking about the contract that they just signed, that they're personally guaranteed until the cows come home, or the fact that they have employees and they have to make sure that they are following certain regulations, or, God forbid, if something happens to them, what happens to that business and their succession planning. So we're here to make sure that businesses, particularly in this community, have a solid foundation. If they have a solid foundation, that means that they have lots of people who can earn a living and keep that money going on a micro level in this community and make for a strong community. So it's a great profession. Law school admissions are up, and I would highly encourage young people to consider it as a profession. It's a great profession.
Tamara?
Well, as I alluded to earlier, in the crisis, the bank became a four-letter word, and I think standing in an airport one time, listening to some folks talk and gasp when they heard I was a banker. I said, this is the first time I feel below attorneys and judges. That we were, wow. But, then you roll time forward, and I'll throw them under the bus. Wells Fargo brings it, to the forefront again. And so you're faced with, greed. People think bankers are greedy and that type of thing. So what they did that got them in trouble is something that's been, since the day we opened, we would never have a campaign to sell a product, because that's where that ends up. And to me, it's win-win. It has to be win-win. and it's, you know, it was win-lose in that case with Wells Fargo. So my people know that that's, the whole thing is the relationship, figure out how we can better serve the client, and you know what, if we can't, take them or show them the bank that they should be going to. And I've had people walk in and say, you know, I want to know what your rates on CDs are, and, you know, I can get, you know, whatever, when the rates were really high, we can get, or higher, 4 or 5% at IndyMac at the time. And I said, you know, that's not our thing, but there's a bank right down there, and their rate is somewhere in between that. You know, I'll have my guy drive you down there. And, you know, my employees sometimes look at me like I'm crazy, but I said, that's the right thing to do. That's, why would you know, that's what they're after, is rate. That's not who we are. We don't post rates. We don't have a canned program for this is what our commercial loan rates are. Most of our products are commoditized now, and, you know, the big banks are going to beat us all day long on price and terms. And so what we do is look at the entire relationship and value it. So if you bring your deposits to us, you have other products and services, that's going to dictate, to a certain extent, what the rate will be on your loan request. So it's really critical that we maintain that, you know, contact with our clients and stay on top of what their business is doing. And I'm really, probably one of the things I'm most proud of is in the decline. We stuck with a lot of our loan customers, clients, who were struggling badly. And at the beginning of that, we launched an accounts receivable product because we saw a lot of our clients in the trades, in construction, were tightening up already, and their operating lines wouldn't underwrite anymore. And so I said, we're going to have to do something to help. So that product worked really well through that period. There were people, I mean, we continued to extend that credit to some businesses that we truly believed in. And we got beat up for it because the regulators come in and say, well, the financials don't support that. That's a substandard credit. You've got to classify it and reserve for it. So our earnings went in the tank. We had 95% of our classified assets were paying as agreed, but they couldn't produce a financial statement that supported that. So we struggled for a couple of years with that. But we lost a couple of businesses that were sad to see them go out of business during that time, but there are people today that still say, I won't go anywhere else because you were there for me and nobody else would. So, you know, I think we were being told by the government, this is the right, you know, this is what we want you to do, it's the right thing to do, and then they come in and examine you and tell you, you know, slap your hand. So it was sort of an odd scenario, but it's something that I stood up in DC and said, we did this and we paid a price for it, but I wouldn't change it. Because that's what we're about, is I can walk around or drive around and see a number of businesses that are here today and flourishing, and we've been a part of their business family for many years, and that's why we do it. That's why I do it. So.
Oh, cool. So, Lindahl,
Yes, sir.
what's on the insurance side, everybody just thinks you're selling home and car insurance, or is there something else that is a bigger misperception?
No. Well, you know, talk about insurance, just, I mean, you could take the jokes and, you know, delete attorney or banker and just add insurance agent in that one, you know, it varies easily. But a lot of, you know, people will just think that insurance companies are either taking your money or I don't like to even use the word rip off, you know, but the misconception of it is that they feel it's an intangible product, you know, and we're selling peace of mind. You know what I mean? And the person who's looking at insurance, no matter what it is, you know, you really have to understand that what I am doing with selling peace of mind, whether it's their car, their home, their business, their life, their health insurance, whatever it is, and we do it all, right? I'm really protecting your most valuable asset, I mean, it could be your children, the business that you built from your garage in Saugus, you know what I mean? And, you know, and it's built, it grew into, what was it over there, Scorpion, you know, something like that. And I've got a lot of businesses like that, but, you know, I'm protecting your most valuable product. So if something happens, whether it's, you know, your life, your family's life, your health, you know, and those are more important, I think, than a car or a home. But still, your home is generally your largest purchase that anybody will make. And, you know, I've had houses burned down. That's crazy. You know, you go there and, you know, you're talking to your client, they're like, oh my God, what do we do next? I said, don't, you know, just take it one day at a time. You know, you'll get them a hotel room, get them start going. And, you know, the insurance covers everything. When a house burns down, it's your toothbrush, your underwear, your couch, your TV, whatever it is. But, you know, the corkscrew that you used to have in there, you don't realize everything you lost until it's gone. You say, oh, hey, I need to get my, I don't have a mop. You know, little stupid stuff like that. But really, besides selling peace of mind, we're really, I have to tell my agents to make sure that the client really gets that, because it's turning that switch and helping them understand, really, I am protecting some of your most valuable assets, your most valuable possessions. And when they really get that, then they value insurance as a product, or commodity, one product actually, service. So.
Gary, bring us across the finish line.
Several of you have mentioned succession planning. You've talked about who's going to run this when I'm not here in 15 years. When I founded Sanger Associates almost 20 years ago, so I'm a couple of years behind you, John, a couple of basic premises, and I didn't think as much of it then as what I thought about it since, and that is, number one, when we take an executive search, we want to make sure we have 2 winners. Now, this seems pretty corny, pretty simple, but that company that has the job and pays the fee, that person obviously has to be a winner, but that candidate that emerges as being the chosen one that's going to get the job, gets the offer, accepts it, he or she has to do all the work. I don't want any surprises. I want that transparent. I want them to know what they're getting into. And I also want that company to be who they are, so that's not a surprise when it's coming in. So the winner on that side, and then if you've done any interviewing on your own before, of course you can't admit it, you're sitting here running your own companies, etc. But how many times have you interviewed and never heard back? It happens routinely out there, especially with the big guys. They are out there, they talk to 50 folks and they'll pick a couple they like and they move on. So we are always transparent. Even if that news is negative, doesn't make them bad or good. It just makes them that they haven't fit the specs that my client is having us look for. We want to be that internal consultant to that client and tell them the truth. If there's an elephant in the room and that's something about what perhaps might not be as attractive about that company or that industry, we want to talk about that. We want to make sure that's going to work, and we want to do that for the long term. So 2 winners, transparency with communication, and do it for the long term.
And an hour goes very quickly with good conversation. So thank you again to each of you for being here. Really appreciate it. And have a good day.